Ever feel like you're standing outside the glittering gates of the creative industry? You know, watching everyone else walking in and wondering, how do I even get through those doors? Well, join the club, literally. I am Michelle, and this is the Uninvited podcast. Welcome back to the Uninvited podcast. Today's guest is a photographer whose lens has captured the quiet intensity of subcultures, the margins of nightlife, and the spaces where identities form after dark. From the Blitz kids to fetish clubs, from the Face magazine to documenting underground culture, he has always photographed from the edge. Not as an insider chasing trends, but as an observer with a deep sense of curiosity and respect. Let's get past the velvet rope with Derek Regis. Hi, Derek.
Hello.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we first met on set, if I recall well.
Yes, I think so.
And I had my picture taken by you for the latest issue of the magazine for a very special cause.
Yes, that's right.
It was quite incredible. I mean, I will be honest with you. I received the offer to be part of this shoot. And I will admit, I feel a bit embarrassed now that I was not aware of your work. And somehow the day before, I did a bit of research and I was like, wow, everything that you have photographed or documented is incredible. I feel like kind of, if I am allowed to say, a bit jealous for everything that you have seen and capture with your camera.
Well, there's no need to be jealous. I think it's still happening. It's still going on. It's as interesting now as it ever was, I think.
And when I asked you to join me for a conversation, you said that you have always felt a bit uninvited. And I'm wondering why, especially because, well, literally, you got past the velvet rope so many times.
Yes. Well, I used to work in the advertising business in the 70s. And in the advertising business, you can't get on if you're not a little bit pushy. So back in those days, I was a little bit more pushy. I was, persistent. If I wanted something, I would ask for it, and so I learned to be persistent, and I had a little bit of chutzpah, and that's how I got into places initially. For the Blitz Club, for instance, if you dressed like me, you'd never have got in there if you weren't persistent. And on the first night that I found out about the club, I went along and Steve Strange was on the door and he said to me, "No, sorry, mate, you can't come in. It's a private party tonight." But of course, I knew it wasn't a private party. They just wanted people that looked good. And I didn't go away. I just wore him down. And after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, he let me in.
How come? What do you think?
Well, it must have been my charm, I suppose. He was a nice guy, basically. And I just think maybe he felt sorry for me.
But somehow you were attracted by those iconic places. But at the same time, you didn't want to blend in or wear what they were wearing.
Oh, no, I would never have been able to blend in with the fashion crowd at all. I mean, I tried to be fashionable in my mid-teens for a short while, but my parents wouldn't have paid for me to have fashionable clothes. I got some nicer clothes from my grandmother, but she just had an old age pension. She bought me some shoes or a pair of trousers or a shirt, but it would never be one outfit all at once. It would be a pair of shoes first, then I'd have to wait for 3 months to get a shirt, another 3 months get a jacket. And so she basically financed my clothes when I was at school. And I remember walking down Hounslow High Street once with her, and I had my finest sort of mod clobber on, check pair of hipsters, two-tone blue suede shoes, and very striped sort of blazer that were quite popular in the mid 60s, albeit all cheap versions. You know, it was not expensive, any of it. And people were looking at me, and there were people that I didn't know, and I didn't like that feeling, really, to be looked at. So after that, I was a little bit more circumspect, although I did buy once from a shop called the Carnaby Cavern, just off Carnaby Street, 67, I think this would have been, might even have been 66, a pair of beautiful, a beautiful brocade green jacket. It had pearl buttons all up the front, bell sleeves, and when I got home, my dad wouldn't let me wear it. He wouldn't even let me wear it in the house, so I had to sell it again. I never ever wore it outside of the time I just put it on, and my father accused me of, can I say it?
Of course.
He's called me a Nancy boy.
Wow. That's quite intense.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that people who used to go at the Blitz Club, they were really attention seeker, and like they will dress up and do their best effort to get in and really want to be seen.
Well, I think the thing about the Blitz was it was quite close to St Martin's Art School in location, and that had a great deal to do with it. Most of the best Blitz kids were from St Martin's, or they either came from there or they eventually went there. And they were quite creative people, and I think very often creative people are quite snappy dressers, like to show off and, meet other people that are like them through the way they dress. That was how it used to be done. Nowadays, I think it can all be done online. You can meet people online, but in those days, in the late 70s, I think it had to be done by what you wore. In the 60s, you could meet like-minded people by the length of your hair, or in the case of some people like the Rolling Stones, by carrying a record around.
And how did you find out about this club? Was it because of your creative circle?
No, none of my creative circle went to those clubs. In fact, I'll tell you the truth, I didn't have a creative circle. It was just me, really. The reason I found out about the Blitz Club was I'd already, the year before, found out about Billy's. And I think I read about that in a newspaper. It sounded like a interesting place, the place that some of the old punks had started to go to. It was Bowie night at Billy's, which was in Soho, in the club that became Gossips. And I went down there a couple of times shooting the very early New Romantics. And then when they got chucked out of that club and they had to find somewhere else, Steve Strange and Russ Egan got chucked out. But of course, I didn't know about that. My ear wasn't close enough to the ground. Plus, I wasn't an insider. So one day I went to Gossips, and all the smart kids had gone. There was a few skinheads down there and a few tourists. And of course, I wanted to know where they went, and they'd gone to the Blitz. And, that's when I followed them down there eventually. Started photographing them at the Blitz. But, they didn't tell me. I wasn't an insider.
When you started taking pictures, was it like a commission work, or was just for yourself?
No. None of my early photographs were commissioned. The pictures that I took of the early Blitz kids, they eventually appeared in the Sunday Times weekend colour supplement, as it was known in those days, and eventually later that year, 1980, they were in the Face magazine. But none of those pictures were ever commissioned.
How did people react when you were taking pictures of them? Were they happy, or they were curious to understand who is this person?
Well, mostly people were quite open and happy for me to photograph them. I'm quite a polite person, so I would almost always ask people. Very rarely would I photograph people without asking them in the reportage style. I love that style, but it's not quite me. So I just want portraits, a bit of eye contact usually, and I would say in the punk days and the days of the new romantics, most people were fine. When I started photographing the skinheads in 1979 as well, and they weren't always fine, but mostly.
You said in a few interviews that you found yourself a bit in danger.
Well, I was in danger when I was photographing the skinheads, and also the people that were surround the skinheads. So they're some maybe older men, very often. But I was very naive, extremely naive. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't even have started.
But somehow it's incredible that you took those photographs. Because of you, I can find out about those subculture, those eras, and so the value is just incredible. And I'm thinking also about the role of a photographer back then, especially in a club. You know, nowadays, if we go to a club, there are still some places where they have, they might have an official photographer working there, but now I have my phone, so I can take some picture of myself or the friends I'm with. But back then, if it wasn't for people like you, we will not have a memory.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I mean, in the late 70s and early 80s, I did occasionally meet people that said to me, I've never been photographed before. That was the first time that anyone had photographed them. I mean, when I was growing up, my teen years, hardly any photographs of me exist. I mean, my mother had a camera, but it was a very old box brownie type thing, which wasn't particularly good, I don't think. And my father didn't have a camera. In fact, I never saw him during his life take a photograph ever. I think he must have done. He must have taken some photographs of my mother, because I've got some photographs of my mother on holiday, and I don't suppose anyone else would have taken them.
When it comes to photography, when did you become interested? Was that always the plan, or you had another goal at the beginning?
When I was at school, as soon as I decided I wanted to do something, I wanted to be a painter, I thought that would be my path to fame. I mean, a fine artist. I went to art school, not through any of my own devices. I went one summer. I'd left for the summer holidays, came back to go in the sixth form, and the teachers at school said, "Oh, we didn't realise you were coming back to be in the sixth form. We thought you'd left school." And I thought, well, I thought I was going to be a schoolboy for another couple of years and do my A-levels. And I don't think they really wanted me at school. But one of the art master, who I really owe everything to, he applied first of all to Isleworth Polytechnic to see if I could get on the art course there, and it was full, because it was literally a few weeks before the start of the term. And then he contacted Ealing Art School, and I managed to get in there. So I was a schoolboy on the Friday and an art student on the following Monday. And it wasn't really down to me or my parents. It was down to the art master.
And then why did you shift to photography?
Well, when I was at art school, I didn't get on any good painting courses. I applied to the Slade and also St Martin's, which I already mentioned. I got turned down by them both. I even got turned down by Wimbledon. And so I did graphics for a year, and then I did 2 years of advertising and marketing, which I really did enjoy. I became an advertising agency art director for some years afterwards. But in 73, I think it was, I had a camera account. I was the art director, but I was also writing the ads as well for that account. And my boss told me to take a camera home and learn how to use it. And so I did. I used to carry it around, taking photographs for a few weeks. And then I went to a gig once with my wife, and we were right at the very back in the whole place. We were at the back row. And I thought, well, I've got my camera here. Why don't I run down the front and start taking photographs? And then I'll be as far away from the musicians as I am to you now. And I thought that would be a much better, more exciting experience. I mean, my wife was left on her own, you know. I mean, she was my girlfriend then, but, you know, she was left on her own. But I did, and because there was no security in those days, there was no one to chuck me out. They might have thought I was a real photographer. Took some photographs. They came out okay. Not great, but okay. And so after that, I started to do often take photographs at gigs. And in '76, when punk came along, the audience then became more photogenic than the bands very often. So I eventually switched around and started photographing the audience and, you know, going to clubs and photographing punks. But to be honest, if I didn't have a camera, I probably never have ever gone to a nightclub.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
How
I'm not
come?
really interested in nightclubs.
Wow, that's so fascinating, especially because you have spent a lot of time there.
I have, yeah, definitely.
So why do you think why were you interested in those places?
I was more in. I think I was interested in the people. There must have been something vicarious about it. You know, I think possibly I would have liked to have been all these people. You know, and through a camera, the camera lets you in. You know, it gives you a certain legitimacy. Whereas if I just wandered into one of these places on my own with no camera, people would think, well, why is he here? He's not one of us. You know.
Yeah, I get the feeling of not feeling like one of those cool kids, but I think that we have to remember that even the cool kids, I am not entirely sure if they felt like they were the cool kids.
Well, that might be right. I've never wanted to be cool. You know, I do. It doesn't
And
bother me.
who is the authority saying who is cool and who isn't? It's quite
Well,
interesting.
I think there's this kind of in crowd. You know, there used to be a song called "The In Crowd." Do you know that one? I think David Bowie did it at one point, but I remember the Ramsey Lewis version of the in crowd. And yeah, there used to be an in crowd of people that would get into parties. And in a way, I admire those people, and those are the people that I often wanted to photograph. I don't know whether I'd really want to be one myself, you know. I wouldn't, you know, feel relaxed in being cool. I mean, when I was even at school, I didn't want to be cool. I wanted to do things. I think if you're one of the crowd and one of the in crowd, it takes away time when you could be productive, actually doing something, whatever it is, painting, writing, taking photographs.
What I find interesting about the person who is in front of the camera and the one who is behind the camera is the collaboration. I feel like every time you take a picture of someone, it's a collaboration, it's a relationship, and you must have been really good to establish a good relationship with those people if they allow you to be photographed.
Yeah, well, you see, as I said earlier, I am polite with people, and also I'm quite respectful, and it's genuine. It's not a pose. You know, I'm not nice to them in front of them and then later on horrible about them. You know, I'm genuinely, sincerely interested in people.
And do you have, talking about the velvet rope, and I'm thinking if you can recall a moment, or it can be an action or a person when you realize, perhaps it was with your photography, oh, this is going somewhere. Now there is a shift. I managed to go from outside. I cross the velvet rope and now I'm inside. I made it. Or
Well, yeah, I don't ever think I would think that I'd made it. I think it's always a journey. But definitely once my pictures of the New Romantics appeared in the Sunday Times magazine and also The Face, then I used to get let into places. So there was no more, oh no, you can't come in, it's a private party tonight, mate, sort of thing. far as I can recall, things were quite democratic in clubs in London. I mean, when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, I think the only thing that would stop you getting in somewhere was not having the money to pay on the door, really. And I think most people would let you in, if you wanted to go. I think it wasn't until maybe the Blitz kids and Steve Strange came along that there was sometimes a door policy for just what people looked like. Taboo was another one. That was from the mid-'80s, Lee Bowery's club in Leicester Square. There was a story about someone getting trampled to death in the crowd outside that club.
Oh.
It wasn't true, but it was in the newspapers. In fact, I know the journalist that wrote it. That was in the Times. Sorry to libel the Times, but she told me that she researched the story, found out it was not true, and her editor said, doesn't matter, it's a good story, we'll print it.
Wow. And well, at the time there was no social media, so
no, that's right.
Yeah.
I do remember going to the Limelight Club once in New York when that was quite a hot ticket. I'd met up with an old school friend, and he came along with one of his work colleagues, and these were like salesman types. They were wearing Gabardine Max, and they were not cool. I wasn't cool myself, but these two were definitely not cool. The least cool type people, office types. And I don't know why we decided to try and go down to one of the coolest clubs in New York at the time, which was the Limelight. Anyway, there's a big crowd outside waiting to get in. We pull up in a cab, the three of us, and the doorman sees us from the steps and calls us over. But the three of us all went straight in. Now, I don't know why he did that. He didn't know any of us. It might have been to piss some of the crowd off. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen.
So you probably felt like a real VIP then.
Well, at that point, yes, I did. I mean, I have felt like a VIP a few other times when I've been with, rock bands going to places where you all have to go in the same limos to things, like U2 if you're hanging about with them, all the police outriders, and you can zoom through the traffic to get to your gig.
And so you start working with and taking picture of musicians and
Yes.
concert around the same time?
Well, I started photographing. I started asking for commissions. I think in '74. I think it was either '74 or '75 when the American funk singer Betty Davis, no longer alive, unfortunately, when she came, I over here to appear at Ronnie Scott's, I rang up Island Records and asked them if they'd like to commission me to shoot her for them. And they said yes. That was my first commission. At that point, I didn't own my own camera. I didn't have a portfolio. So if they'd have said, "Oh, why don't you come in and show us some of your photographs?"
Wow, so it's like
I wouldn't have had anything to show.
very enterprising.
I know. I've still got the invoice. I think it was £30. That was my fee for that job.
Did you enjoy the concert as
Oh,
well?
it was fantastic. She was great. Yeah. In fact, that was the last. I used to. It's probably a bit of a side matter, but I used to be quite friendly with Freddie Mercury when we were at art school together. That was the last time I saw him that night.
Wait, you went to art school with Freddie Mercury?
I did, yes, when he was still Freddie Bulsara.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the last time I ever spoke to him. After the concert, it was sort of empty. Just had a.
But you took pictures of him as well.
No, I didn't. Certainly didn't photograph him at art school. Didn't have a camera then. But
okay.
no, he was. Queen by that point were quite well known.
Yeah.
Famous almost, but he was a very, very nice bloke, and so we had a beer together. In fact, I've told so many people it's probably boring. He stole my first girlfriend from me, in front of my eyes one at Easter in the Castle pub in Ealing. I got up to use the bathroom. She'd been sitting on my lap because it was so crowded, full of students. I came back from the bathroom and she's sitting on his lap, and I stood there for a few moments to, expecting him to get up and
leave.
go back, to how things were. But I stormed off, and that was it between me and her.
How old were you back then?
17. Yeah.
But that
And
could be a nice book or a movie. Freddie Mercury Stole My Girlfriend.
Yeah, well, she got rid of him after a few months anyway. So I think he was about 19 then. He was definitely a couple of years older than me. But he was a real sweet guy. No one disliked him. I didn't, take it out on him. I was annoyed with her.
Yeah.
But really, annoyance isn't quite the word, because obviously if someone picks someone else instead of you, you can't really be annoyed, can you? You've only got yourself to blame. But to be honest, if I was her, I would have picked him as well. He was smart, handsome, sophisticated. I was probably wearing the same clothes I was wearing when I was at school.
Going back to the Blitz Club, there is something that I find so interesting. You said a few times that we always think that things were better in the past, and we like to romanticize eras or clubs. And you actually said that the Blitz Club was not that great place. Is it true?
Yeah, no, it wasn't great from a visual point of view. It was a wine bar, a small wine bar, probably, not all that much bigger than this place here, really. But it was the people that made the club, and there weren't that many of the people. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it held about 150 people. They might have squeezed 200 in if the fire marshals were looking the other way. But yeah, the hardcore Blitz crowd that people remember or know all the names probably know more than about 40 or 50. And in all these scenes that I've been in, very often there's a hardcore group and the rest is just the hangers-on and the watchers. If you look at photographs of the Scene Club, the mod club in London in the 60s, you see a few mods dancing, and then the people around them are basically old beatniks or just people wearing suits and ties.
I am wondering why we do romanticize places, venues, or perhaps I will say in my case it's I can only read about it and I can only have a look at the photographs, but I wasn't there.
No, well, the photographers like me, they're partly responsible. You see, if I went to an event like I have been quite many times, that's quite boring. It's full of 200 or 300 most boring looking people. But if there's half a dozen there that are great looking, I'll photograph those half a dozen. In a few years' time, when people look back, they'll see those photographs. They'll think, well, maybe everyone was looking like that. I went to a party not long ago. I better not say exactly when, just in case they're listening, the people that invited me. It was like an airport lounge, It was that dull. But there were probably 3 or 4 fantastic looking people, and they were the people that I photographed.
I'm thinking perhaps, have you ever been to Studio 54?
No, I missed that. I went to Area once.
Okay.
That was around about the same, little bit later. That was mid-80s. And there was another very big club in New York called The World. That was an interesting club. I missed Studio 54. It
feels like it's the greatest place ever, but perhaps maybe someone else could say, actually, it wasn't that great. I don't think so.
I've never heard anyone say that about Studio 54.
Yeah.
But, there was Coup in Ibiza. That was a very cool club.
And you actually, you publish a book about it.
Yeah, well, it was a zine, really. I think I only went once or twice. But that was very cool because it was full of the beautiful people. And I'm not talking about the British. It was before the British got there, really. It was mostly Europeans.
What was fascinating about it?
It was it looked beautiful. It was a open air club, and there was a slide that you could come down. There was a dragon that you could slide down into the pool in the middle of the club through the dragon's mouth. And also, you know, when the sun came up, because it was partly open air, it was, you know, quite beautiful. It was almost like a James Bond set, really, more than a club.
Is it still open?
Well, it became Manumission, and I don't know if it's still open, but Manumission wasn't quite so good, in my opinion, because, you know, by that time there was too many people. It was mainly a dance club at that point. A lot of English people, English ravers, and that was a different vibe. I was more interested in the posers and the European beautiful people, who were really a combination of hippies and rich kids.
I've never been to Ibiza, but I should go, but probably it's not the same anymore.
No, it isn't the same, unfortunately. The spirit of the old Ibiza is gone, but I don't think it's just gone from Ibiza. I think it's probably gone from everywhere now. You know, everything's too commercial, really.
I found a picture I had a look at your Instagram account the other day, and I found a beautiful picture of Princess Julia.
Yeah.
And I think it must be so amazing that you are, you know, when you go out, when you still go to parties and take picture of people, you might bump into her, and you probably have an archive of.
I do bump into her quite often, actually.
Right,
yes.
right.
I mean, I think she's one of the few people that are still going out to parties and clubs from the late 70s, from that crowd. I mean, she's not the only one. There are some others, but really, she's probably the most known one that's still out.
Do you have, not sure if I'm allowed to ask you this question, do you have any favorite person you like to photograph, even alive or dead?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I've ever been asked that specific question before, but I don't have anyone that I would say was my favorite, because one reason why I wouldn't like to say anyway, even if I did have a favorite, is all the others would somehow feel that they were somehow not so good. But to be perfectly honest, I don't really have any favorites. I'm always looking forward to the next person that I come to photograph. And, you know, I have lots of people that I've loved photographing, and I love to photograph as much as I can.
And that's why I think it's so great as a creative to keep on evolving. And maybe that's why you don't rely too much on the past or the nostalgia, because you're always curious to photograph something new.
Yeah, I am always curious, although I must admit I am slowing down now because of my age and what that means in terms of going into clubs and photographing young people. I'm 75 now, so I do have to be a bit more careful there. Otherwise, it's going to come across as quite creepy.
Well,
if I'm not careful. So I have to moderate it now. Whereas if I'm still, 17 inside.
I bet, and that's why you keep on evolving. I feel like I am more nostalgic than you are, and I'm like, wow, it's so important to always look forward.
Yeah. No, I think there's some fantastic looking people around now. I mean, quite often people say to me, oh, I wish I was around then. But
that's why I told you earlier. It's more, maybe I used the wrong word when I said jealous, but in the sense that you have managed to really witness so many eras and capture those moments.
Yeah. No, I'm not one of those people that thinks it was always better in the old days. I mean, I think some things were better. I liked the music better when I was young, but then everyone likes the music from when they were young, don't they? But I think, going out and stuff's much better now. And also the smartphone gives you access to the whole world. If say you wanted to tell somebody about, supposing you were doing something, you wanted the world to know about it. If it was interesting enough, the whole world could know by this evening.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was young, I could labour away for months or years. No one would ever know other than my family and friends.
Do you think that nowadays, though, given that we have access to so much more, there is more competition, so it's more difficult to stand out?
Well, that's undoubtedly going to be true. Yes, that's right. Yeah, in my day, if you wanted to be a photographer, if you wanted that job, all you really needed was a camera and the confidence to approach people and ask for work. And then anyone that wanted to be a photographer could be a photographer. Now you can go to university for 3 years and study, and then when you get out, it's not going to be any easier to get that a job doing it. You might get a job, but also you might have to, be a waitress or, busboy or something.
Moving to the second section of the podcast, the gate crash, I'm wondering if you ever challenge a gatekeeper in your career. And that can be, when I talk about the gate crash, it can be like metaphorical or literal, that you decide to take a chance, break a rule to move forward. It can be a career shortcut or breaking the hierarchy, or simply literally gate crash an event or a
yes,
party.
I have gate crashed plenty of things, events and parties and other things in my life. But the thing is, you can't get anywhere if you're just going to be put off the first time someone says no. So you've got to be the type of person, if you're a photographer anyway, I think, that doesn't take no for an answer. I once had to go and photograph Ayrton Senna at Brands Hatch when the British Grand Prix was still at Brands Hatch, and I didn't have the right passes, so I got chucked out. I think I got chucked out about 6 different times on the same day, but there were several entrances you could get into the, pits area. So, I spent all day there. And I managed to take some photographs of Ayrton Senna eventually. But yeah, I'm not someone that ever minds being rejected or chucked out, because I feel that that's part of the person that I am. You can't be both an insider and an outsider. I'm happy to be an outsider. That gives me a point of view, you see.
Well, and somehow you didn't study photography. You became a photographer without education, and somehow it's, I will say, it's also a form of gate crash.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, I did a year at the local night school learning how to print in a darkroom. But I haven't had any education as a photographer, although I did used to art direct other photographers, so I could watch them. And my advice, if anyone wanted to be a photographer, is the easiest way to learn is just assist other people.
And somehow I'm sure that your background working as a art director was very helpful too.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I met some great photographers, got to watch what they were doing all the time, and that was how I learned. Because the times when I've art directed photographers, they all have different styles. I remember there was one guy that I was art directing him doing room sets, and he brought some white sheets, and he would lay the white sheets on the floor. I've only ever seen one person ever do that. Sometimes people have reflectors, polyboard reflectors on the floor, but I only ever saw one person bring actual white sheets to reflect the light. And it's quite a good idea, I think, So all those kind of little singular techniques people have got, I tend to remember them all. I knew another photographer that had a load of camera gear. He never used to get it out of his car because he would always take it in case he needed it and then try to use available light. And that's one of the things that I learned from him. I used to have lots of camera lighting equipment and I just got rid of it. I flogged it all eventually because I was never using it. And then if you need it, you can hire it.
And how did you develop your photography style? Do you think you have a signature style?
Well, I suppose I do, but it's hard for me to properly recognize it. I mean, I know that I'd like to have a style and I like to have I think I've got a little bit of a style where black and white's concerned. With color, it's less obvious.
Especially on Instagram, I think it's very nice that it's very cohesive.
Yeah. Well, some people could say that to me, and I'm pleased about that, but it's hard to push having a style. I like graphic simplicity and good designing stuff, in photography as much as anything else.
And then you also work for very legendary magazines.
Yeah.
The Face. Well, I attended the Face exhibition, I think it was last year, at the National Portrait Gallery. And I found it so interesting because the magazine really captured the zeitgeist of that time.
It did, yes, that's right, yeah. I mean, it started off really as a music magazine, but it just evolved.
And how did you get to work with them? Did they reach out to you?
No, they didn't. I had to reach out to them, but their office was, probably less than a minute's walk from where my office was in Soho. When they started, I was in an agency in Ingester Court, which is the tall building right in the middle of Soho. I was on the second or third floor of that building. The rest of it's flats, of course, but yes, probably a minute's walk from where the Face office was.
And what type of photography did you take for them?
For
the Face?
Oh, well, I just took in, to begin with, what I'd already done. The first set of pictures would have been, maybe after issue 2 or 3, when I took my pictures of the Blitz kids in. And I think it was probably issue 7 before that was actually in the magazine. Might be 5 or 7. David Bowie's on the cover of that issue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you work with them when they relaunched the magazine a few years ago?
I didn't know. No, I was long gone by then. I really only worked for the Face in the 80s. I mean, I was never really an insider there either.
Why?
I don't know why. I mean, that's my style, really.
I don't know if we can really call you an outsider, because I feel like somehow you are around the edge, and maybe that's that's the best place to be.
Well, it's the only place that really suits me, you see. I wouldn't ever feel at home being insider anywhere. That's why the Uninvited is so perfect for me. Really.
Although I feel like you have been officially invited to those places.
Yes. Well, it's just a matter of perspective, isn't it? Once you're there, people, anyone that wasn't there would think, well, he's one of them.
What I find so fascinating, and that's why I came up with, and I used the velvet rope as a metaphor, is the fact that if you think about it, it's incredible how one step forward and you're inside, and anything can change, anything can happen. But it's just one step forward. The line between outside and inside, it's very, very tiny.
I know. And sometimes when you get inside the velvet rope, you wish you'd stayed outside because it's more interesting.
Okay, so are you talking about a special event or occasion?
No, I think very often when I've been with bands, with really famous bands, sometimes they get invited to inside the velvet rope, and I've been with them. And sometimes people will open up clubs that weren't open before just for the band to go there. And in a way, you feel that actually we'd have been better off if we hadn't gone there, if we'd stayed where we were.
And then you also work, or actually, you had a few collaboration with fashion brands.
Yeah.
I think you work with Saint Laurent
Well,
recently.
in a way, I did, yes. They just, they used some of my photographs on, I think they did some T-shirts with pictures of people kissing from clubs, and also I think they had a hoodie or two. And that's happened a few times with where they used my photographs on their clothes. It's never really ideal, although sometimes I shouldn't criticize them, I'm sure, but I've had a few bootlegs of my photos done. Very often the bootlegs that are done by an enthusiastic fan somewhere are designed better than the ones that are designed by proper designers. This is me being honest here.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
Although I thought it was a very interesting collaboration, and I think the creative director of Saint Laurent at the moment, he has collaborated with different creatives.
Yeah, no, I think it might. I've got a feeling it was the person that collaborated with me was Anthony Vaccarello.
Yeah.
Yeah, is he still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well,
I've seen that he has collaborated with other artists, and I always think it's very exciting.
yeah. Well, I had a show in the Saint Laurent Rive Gauche in Beverly Hills and also in Paris, but it was in 2021. It was at basically the peak of lockdown, so I don't think anyone went.
Oh,
I couldn't even get any photos. I did ask them for some photos. I think a member of staff posted some photos on Instagram, but I didn't ever get any proper photographs of what the show looked like, and I didn't go because of the lockdown.
maybe.
Yeah. It's not a good time to have a show when no one can go.
Yeah, maybe there will be another one, hopefully.
Well, you never know. You never say never.
Right. And what I also think it's so interesting about your picture is that we can really see the evolution of London as a city, how exciting it is with all that happened, and it's still happening. What do you find fascinating nowadays? Because I feel like back then it was easier to put a label on people: skinhead, punk, new romantics. Why nowadays it has become more challenging. Everything is more fluid. Is there anything that you find fascinating nowadays, or if there is a place or a venue that you really like?
Yeah, no, I'm still very interested in what's going on, but I think we're living in a very postmodern world now, so everything can exist at the same time together, and in some clubs it does. Yeah. Monster Queen is a good one, I think, where you could have all different types of...
What's the name?
Monster Queen in Camden.
Okay.
But, it's not the only one. There's lots of interesting clubs. I think in a way that it's more interesting now. It was a little bit more fragmented in the old days, where you could say that someone was a skinhead or someone was a rockabilly.
Yeah.
And they had their own places. But now everything's a big melange, really, of everything.
So I have to go and try the place.
Yeah, well, they seem quite friendly. The modern clubs that I've been into, you do have to take ID, of course.
Okay.
Whereas in the old days, no one had to.
I thought
take
people
ID.
used to fake ID to get in.
That's right. But some of the people that I photographed in clubs in the 70s and 80s were 13 at the time. I know they didn't ask for you for ID in those days.
Okay. Well, probably they didn't. Well, it's easier to get in trouble now. Right?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And moving to the last section of the podcast, I would like to know if there is an invitation that you still would like to receive, a project, a collaboration, or anything.
Yeah, no, I am quite open to anything interesting. I'm going to be able to bring something to the party. Occasionally people ask me to do stuff, but it's not my style. So they're saying, well, we want to do what you do. Will you come and work for us? But really what they mean, they don't mean that. What they really mean is you come to work for us and we'll bend you to fit our style. That's almost always what happens,
And how do you react? Do you try to find a balance between what they commission and your style, or you're straightforward and you're like, it's not going to work for me?
Well, luckily I've got an agent and she can say no for me, because I was just one of these people that could never quite say no to anybody. I was always so flattered by being asked to do anything. I would try and do pretty much anything. Well, at one point, I would have done anything. I've done lots of different types of photography in my life.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah, no, I love to photograph people. That's definitely my favorite. But, I've done other things. I've done room sets, and stuff like that. All sorts. Probably a few things I couldn't say as well, but I didn't quite get to do it,
And you mentioned earlier that when you were younger, you wanted to become a painter. Do you still paint?
No, I did my last painting on oil painting. I think I painted my son when he was about 2 or 3. That would have been 74. That was the last time I did an oil painting. But my ambition now, I think, is to retire completely from photography when I'm 80 and maybe take up painting then. I mean, you still have to have, all your hands and fingers to be able to do it nicely. But, I could maybe do that. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to be a photographer all my life, but I mean, I'm kind of hoping, to have a bit more time. Yeah.
Do you think that the fact that you have been rejected by those schools, universities, they put you down, or they give you a reason to move forward?
No, I don't think that. I didn't feel, I mean, I was rejected, obviously, but they've got to reject someone. And it didn't motivate me to try and do better. I mean, I think I had my own motivations anyway. I didn't need to have rejection to motivate me. I would have done what I would have wanted to do anyway, whether I was taken on as a student or not. I would have carried on. I mean, when I was doing it, I was drawing and painting anyway when I was at school.
And somehow it's incredible that although this was not the original plan, I feel like your career has been pretty amazing and exciting.
I can't complain. I think I've been very lucky. Photography's given me a great life. I mean, I have seen the world. It's been very good to me.
If you could extend an invitation to someone else, who will it be? Or perhaps someone that wants to get past the velvet rope?
Well, I would say to a young photographer, one of the most important things is to be persistent and stick with it. And if you stick with something long enough, eventually you're going to get there. I think that stickability or persistence transcends talent. Really, there's lots of fantastic, talented young photographers around nowadays, far more than there ever were in my day. But whether they've got the ability to stick with it, I don't know, because one thing I notice about a lot of young photographers is they don't have much confidence.
Yeah, and somehow you prove that persistence will pay off eventually, because at the beginning the gatekeepers told you no, but eventually you got inside and...
Well, I had a lot of confidence, but it didn't come from anywhere. It was just me being cocky. I mean, I'm not like that now, but certainly when I was in my 20s, I was one of the masters of the universe working for the advertising agency.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was scruffy. I didn't look like someone that just walked out of Mad Men, the TV show.
Perhaps what it's a bit challenging nowadays, I believe it's way easier to compare yourself to others, and we have social media and scrolling through social media and seeing other people's work, that's why I decided to create this podcast, because I believe that every journey is unique. Every journey has a story, and every story unfolds with its own time, its own rhythm, and its own reasons. Yeah. And we forget too often about that. And that's why it's incredible that you didn't plan to have this career. And
no, that's right, I didn't. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, as I say, I've been very lucky. I do appreciate the luck that I've had.
Is there anyone in particular, or a place, a venue that you would love to photograph and you haven't had the chance yet?
No, but I'm inspired by other people, looking at other people's work. And, really, I just like to carry on and doing what I've been doing and do it a bit more, have more chances. As a photographer, I can't photograph everybody. I'd almost like to photograph everybody, but I know I'm never going to live that long enough to photograph everyone.
Well, do as much as you can.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, thank you.
So whether you're on the list, crashing the gate, or building your own entrance, this is your invite to join the party.